Hey everybody, special presentation from In the Money Media. We're taking a look at the first of what are going to be two Preakness Future Wagers. It's open this weekend. It's actually closing on Saturday night, and yet there's a big race on Sunday that's going to have implications for this bet. I'm looking at that not as a problem, but as an opportunity. Rather than taking 1-5 on Nysos on Sunday, I think I'm going to bet him in this Preakness Future Wager. 2-1 right now, 4-1 on the morning line. We'll see where the prices closes. But I know, JK, you've been a big fan of Nysos all along. We're taking a look at him here in his last win, Imperious in victory. I think we might see more of the same on Sunday. What do you think about Nysos and his chance in this year's Preakness?
Yeah, he's got that profile, and based on the way he's winning this race, he feels like the type of horse that would be favored for the Kentucky Derby if he continued on the same path he appears to be on. And one of the horses that would be lining up in that Preakness gate with a chance with a Triple Crown on the line. But with Baffert not being able to run in the Derby and Nysos staying with Baffert, he's turned into a Preakness horse. And what better way to get down with that opinion in terms of this Preakness future pool? Now, I think what you have to try to think about is whether you're a Nysos fan or not, because I think there's either value in terms of betting on Nysos because you're going to be facing a Kentucky Derby winner who's likely to be favored into the teeth of Nysos as long as it's kind of one of the more fancied horses that wins the Kentucky Derby. But then you're also in the situation where if you don't like the favorites of the Kentucky Derby, then you probably need to take into consideration that if a 10, 15, 20-1 shot wins the Kentucky Derby, it's very possible that, like with Rachel Alexandra, you're going to have the favorite not be the Derby winner, which I think is also something interesting to take into consideration. There is an opportunity for some value here, Pete, in my opinion. You just have to kind of mold it around what your opinion is of Nysos in the Preakness.
I'm going to go out of my way to say that I think Nysos, if he continues on this trajectory he's on, might just well be the favorite. And that's why I think the math is on your side in this bet, even if you only end up getting 5-2, 3-1 on Nysos. He's going to be 1-5 on Sunday. If he wins that, he's going to probably be 1-5 again in the Santa Anita Derby against what I would imagine will be a similar cast of characters. I think he could go to the Preakness as a heavy favorite, given what we've seen from the rest of this crop. All of a sudden, that price is going to look pretty good. And we've seen this movie before, JK. We take a look now at last year's Preakness Stakes. National Treasure, trained by Baffert, won the Santa Anita Derby, ended up skipping the Kentucky Derby, wasn't eligible for it, just like Nysos. And then he goes to the Preakness, and he's able to get the right trip and win. Nysos, obviously, much faster, much better credentialed horse than National Treasure at this point. But I think we could be seeing the Baffert in the winner's circle under the windmill and the whole jazz there in the infield at Pimlico once again. What about other horses? Do you have any other angles as we look over the odds, current odds on this field? Obviously, these will be changing until the wager closes, but these are the current odds you're seeing up there on the screen right now. What else leaps out to you, JK?
Well, one of the things when it comes to these future wagers that I believe you can do, and even with future wagers in sports, is I feel like it's a way, especially like March Madness coming up, it's a way for you to create some equity and some value where then you can do other things later or on the day. So if, say you like Nysos as a whole, you believe that he is a horse that is going to be favored in the Preakness or should win the Preakness or whatever your opinion might be, you can get down now to a certain extent and be alive at 2-1 or whatever the horse closes at. And then come Preakness Day, you've already kind of are sitting on some equity where you can then play some games, whether it's in multi-race bets or whether it's in the exacta pool or whatever. I think that there's something to that. If you aren't a Nysos guy, I think you have to try to get creative and start to kind of think what's going to happen. Track Phantom, for instance. If he runs well in the Derby, is Steve Asmussen going to run him back? When it comes to a horse like Sierra Leone, if he runs second in the Kentucky Derby, is Chad Brown going to run him back? Or are they going to point to the Belmont? I think in situations like that, you have to try to predict who's going to be running in the Preakness, because when you place this wager, the first thing you need to make sure you accomplish is your horse is in the gate. And I think that's part of the battle here. A horse like Forever Young, I think, is interesting, right? Coming over from overseas. If this horse shows up, runs in the Kentucky Derby, you'd like to think that if they've come all the way over here, they're going to dance all the dances in these 3-year-old races. Or maybe you think opposite. Maybe you think that they come over running the Derby and skip the Preakness and wait for the Belmont Stakes. I think there's a lot of different scenarios. You have to try to close your eyes and imagine who's going to be in that 14 horse gate on the third Saturday in May. And I think that that's some of the ways you can try to create some value with this wager.
You mentioned about Forever Young, the horse that was second to him, not going to be running in the Derby. That's Bookham Dano. He'd be another one who might be able to come back for the Preakness, finished so close to Forever Young that day. That's one that leapt to mind as you were saying that. Also, of course, obvious here, but the other Baffords right now, huge prices. I would imagine some money's going to come for the likes of Muth and Maymoon, but you got to figure the Preakness is there for a shot. I wouldn't hate the idea. Take a look at these bets on Saturday night near when it closes. If you're getting huge numbers on them, they might be interesting alternatives. Maybe you bet them in the future pool. You wait for the day to do your stuff with Nysos. There's a lot of different approaches you can take. For me, right now, all about Nysos. What about you? A closing thought on this Preakness Future bet?
I think one interesting way I would approach this is taking all the Baffert horses and Dutching them, right? Taking their prices, putting them in a Dutch calculator, and basically having them all covered for the same return. I think that can create some pretty interesting equity and value on the day of, especially because a lot of the other Bafferts besides Nysos, I think are going to be a little bit ignored. I think you're going to probably be able to get some good prices in this future pool.
Great stuff, JK. We're going to be back with lots more Derby coverage, as well as continuing to talk about the Preakness Future Bet, which will have a second version in a few weeks' time. Thanks to you. Thanks to our friends at Roberts Communications, RTN.TV, for letting us show the videos that you've seen here in this as well. We'll be back the next time. Until then, may you win all your photos.